And today we are going to be talking about what is most important, percentages or dollar amounts. Hello, my name is Edwin Epperson. I am with Bue Bay Capital, and we are helping real estate investors like yourself make wiser, more informed decisions. So let's go ahead and get started with our topics of conversation. So today's topics of conversation are going to include, they are going to be misconception between dollars, looking at real estate deals, dollars versus percentages. We're going to look at real estate projects through the eyes of a lender. And then we're going to touch base on some of the valuable assets that you as a real estate investor should be concerned about. So here's the misconception. Most people, we hear this all the time. I need to make between $30 and $40 and $50,000 each deal. That's what people are, they're very focused on a dollar amount. But we want to be sure to emphasize that there is a big difference between planned profit and realized profit. And we're going to go through an exercise that actually walks how that looks like. And hopefully by the end of this, you're going to realize that you should be looking at almost all of your projects, not from this is how much money as a dollar amount I want to make on a project, but this is how much as a percentage I want to make on a project. So let's go ahead and dive in. We've got our example deal. This example deal will be used throughout the rest of today's presentation, and it's going to be based on an ARV of $200,000 with a planned profit of $35,000. So you're looking at a project, and this is what you get proposed, let's say, from a wholesaler. So you're going to sit down with the numbers, ARV of 200, planned profit of 35,000, and you're going to back out some of your numbers. So this is what it would look like. You've got a purchase price of 100,000. You've got your purchase closing cost of 1,800. This is your title company cost to just close on the property. And this is not including, this is as if it were a true cash purchase. You've got construction cost of $50,000. So let's say this is a $50,000 renovation project. To sell the property, you've got $16,000 in sell cost, okay? That includes your real estate agent commission fees and your closing cost on the sale as far as title goes. So that gives you a total gross profit of $167,800 with a planned net profit of $32,200. That actually makes a lot of sense. So a lot of people will see here is they'll go ahead and get this property under contract, and then they start looking for a loan. Well, let's dive into this because as a lender, this is what we look at, and it can actually be quite frustrating for real estate investors when they're like, well, this is a great deal. I don't understand why you don't want to fund it. So this is what we look at. So you've got your purchase cost, closing cost, construction. One of the things that we always like to see is a contingency. Most people don't calculate this in when they're looking at getting a loan. But we want to see between 10 and 15% contingency. We want to see that you have calculated for that. And it doesn't mean that you're going to actually use it, though in the years that I've been doing private lending, over 100 plus loans, I have never seen a project that goes exactly as planned and on time. It's either going to go past the time frame or it's going to go past cost. For instance, there's a project we have right here in South Tampa, Florida. The borrower is a great guy, has done a lot of work. He's probably one of the most on time and accurate renovators, and yet some things are completely out of your control. He has a HVAC unit that he ordered, and it's been 6 weeks going on the 7th week, and that HVAC unit still has not arrived. That was completely unplanned. And guess what? He cannot finalize his electrical until he has his AC installed. If he can't finalize his electrical, he can't get his certificate of occupancy and he can't list it for sale. This has literally been 6 weeks that he's been held up on the very end stage of this project, all because it's something that is completely outside of his control. So that's why we want to see this contingency. Hopefully you never have to use it. But time and time again, we have seen people have to use that contingency, whether to pay for holding costs or unseen expenses. It normally gets used. Now, here's some other costs that a lot of people don't consider when they're looking at making their offers. They don't consider their insurance costs for the time that they're going to hold the property. They don't look at their permit cost. They don't look at their utility cost. And honestly, on their sell cost, it's a little bit low, and we'll walk over why your sell cost should actually be higher than just the 6% to sell the property. You want to calculate some additional cost in there because sometimes, if not more than likely, that could be the case. So all of a sudden, now you're looking at a total cost, if you will, to this project from $167,800 up to $185,200, which leaves you a net profit of $14,800. Well, that's literally almost half of what your planned profit was. And so then all of a sudden you've come to a lender, whether a hard money or a private lender, and they're wanting to see, they're sitting here breaking out these costs, and you would say, well, I want to borrow money. Well, all of a sudden that leverage can really blow that project out of the water. It's viability. So here's some just rough numbers. Let's say the loan cost is going to be $3,900 to get the loan, and then holding cost for 6 months is $7,800. Well, based on that, your actual profit is sitting at $3,100. That's your net profit. And that's if everything goes as planned, specifically to the time frame. Because remember, the minute you go over 6 months, well, guess what? Now you have to buy additional time and insurance. You have to pay for additional months in utilities. You have to pay additional holding costs if you've borrowed the loan. That $3,100 can quickly evaporate. And before long, you're going to find yourself in the red doing a project that you thought when you first looked at it, you were going to make $35,000 profit. And a lot of real estate investors scratched their head because they thought, well, I was going to make $32,200 and now I'm not making anything. Or even worse, they don't even know what their actual real costs are, and they assume or they think that they're making money. So always be aware of the cost and understand that a lot of those numbers that I've just spit out here are based on percentages. They're not based on actual dollar cost. So let's take a look at this. What is, through the eyes of a lender, what are we looking at? Well, we look at everything through a percentage perspective. We're always looking at the percentage. So here's some high-level percentages that we look at. We look at the LTV, the loan to value, the PLTV, purchase loan to value, the ARV, after repair value, the LTC, the loan to cost, the PDTI, that's the property debt to income, the interest, the points. All of these numbers, and there's many more that are all seen from a lender's perspective from a percentage. Why is that? Well, percentages allow flexibility as costs increase or decrease. If you're focused on a percentage, you have a lot more flexibility going into a project than if you're only focused on a dollar amount. And what we have found time and time again, that sophisticated investors, the investors that are building a business, they are building a system, they are being successful in the real estate game, is because they look at percentages versus dollar. It is a mind shift. It is taking the idea of how you look at real estate investing and changing that. So let's give some high-level percentages that you as a real estate investor can utilize to help you better estimate the cost or the project viability before you bring it to a lender. So what we like to see throughout Florida is an estimated 1.8% on closing cost. Of course, if you're working with a title company that is specific to real estate investors, this could be a little bit less. If you're not, this could be a little bit more. It also depends on the county. Some counties are going to be higher, such as Hillsborough or Miami-Dade are going to be much higher than, let's say, Ocala, Florida. It's just a different part of Florida. So every county is going to have different costs. We recommend that you use that 1.8% metric as a measuring tool, and that's based on your purchase price. So that 1.8% is based on your purchase price when you acquire your asset. We highly recommend that you have a healthy contingency, 15% based on your construction costs. So whatever your construction cost is, we like to see between 15 and honestly even 20%. We find that people that have a 10% contingency, you may think that that's enough, but more often than not, that 10% contingency actually gets blown right out of the water in many, many cases. And whether that's due to a project going longer than planned and you're incurring additional holding costs, or whether that's the project literally there were unforeseen costs, termite damage, the roof was actually in worse condition than you thought, the HVAC unit was in poor condition, you ended up having to replace it. all of these things can contribute to you going well over that 10% contingency. And here's the selling cost. We actually like to see real estate investors estimating on the sell. So this is when you sell, not when you acquire or buy the asset. When you're turning around to selling the asset, we want to see between 11 and 8% on the sell price. And this is how it's broken down. Agent commissions should always be accounted for as 6%. Even if you get a deal, even if you as a real estate investor are also a real estate agent, you're going to list your own house for sale. You understand this better than most. Your time is not free, even if you're doing it for yourself. Well, if you spend 3 weeks marketing that property, well, that's 3 weeks that you as a real estate agent, putting on the real estate agent hat, have had to use to get that property sold. If it takes longer, and then guess what? That's more time going to the property, meeting with sellers or buyers, it can take a lot of your time. So just know that even though you may be quote unquote saving that cost because you're going to represent yourself in that property, you're not accounting for the time that is necessary to dedicate towards that. And then even so, even if you do find the seller, let's say that the seller does bring their own agent, well, you know that there is automatically a certain percentage, whether that's 1, 2, or 3% goes to that buyer's agent. So what we like to see is that the real estate investors are actually taking in consideration that full 6%, the agent commission. If the deal makes sense with 6% on the agent commission on the sale, then guess what? That's even more money in your pocket if you don't have to pay that full 6%. Closing costs. This is the title company. All fees that are typically associated with the closing cost from the seller perspective, that's what we like to see is right around a 2%. Now here's that 2 to 4% that's normally not accounted for. Depending on the market, yes, if you're in a really hot market, you're probably not going to have to worry about a concession, meaning the buyer comes to you and says, oh, well, I don't like that appliance package that you have. We want a $4,000 or a certain type of concession. Or maybe, hey, we will buy this property, but we really want a wooden fence around the backyard. Can you put a wooden fence in? Can you throw that in for closing? So these are all concessions. If you're in a really hot market, you may not get any concession request. However, if you think that you're in a hot market and all of a sudden the buyer comes to you and says, yeah, we're not really wanting to buy the property unless X, Y, and Z is done, and you're not getting any other offers, and you're going on 2 or 3 weeks and you're used to your property getting under contract on day one, well, all of a sudden, if you haven't accounted for that concession, that will eat into your profit. We like to see real estate investors at least account for the concession, because if you take that and a deal makes sense with an 11% sell price, the cost to sell your property, it's 11%. And if you don't eat up all 11%, maybe it's only 8% or 9%, then guess what? That's an additional 1, 2, 3, 4% that goes into your pocket that you had already planned for. So again, it's all about looking at it from the eyes of a lender. Again, if you're going to utilize leverage, we understand that there are a lot of training, a lot of gurus out there that say, well, you can get money for this and that, and 2%, no points, all the money you want all day long. That's unrealistic. So what we want to encourage you to do is, if you're looking at utilizing leverage, account for 3% of the loan amount, and then account for 1% per month for the cost of carrying that leverage. If the deal makes sense with those numbers in place, then if you don't have to pay the 3 points, or you don't have to pay 1% per month, that's also 12% annual, and you pay less than that, then guess what? That's additional money in your pocket. But again, if you're accounting for that, looking at the deal, then when you go to a lender and they give you better rates than that, well, guess what? You know that you're going to make more money. Your percentage as far as a net profit to you just went up. It's better to increase because you get better rates than you think that you're going to walk into a deal and get 1 point for the cost of your money and 8%, and all of a sudden it comes back at 3 points and 12%, and now your deal doesn't make sense. So make sure that you're accounting for your cost, and if you get better cost of your capital, then that is better for you, and you're clearly increasing the net profit on your project. So let's think about this. Let's look at profit, construction, and MAO. That's maximum allowable offer. So we're going to look at dollar amounts, compared to percentages. So this is going to help you start shifting that mindset from dollars to thinking in percentages. So most people will look at profit. I want to make $35,000. Well, we would recommend that you start looking at, I want to make a set percentage, whether that's 15, 18, 20, 22, 25, whatever that is. You want to make sure that you're looking at percentages based on the net of ARV. Construction costs. Most people say, I want to be in projects that are between $35,000 and $50,000. We would encourage you to look at the cost of the project compared to the ARV, seen as a percentage. If you're between 22 and 25% of ARV, that's a very viable and healthy renovation amount. If you start to creep above 25% based on your ARV, well, all of a sudden, there's only one number that you should be adjusting, and it's not your construction cost. You shouldn't be beating up your contractors to get better pricing. You shouldn't be beating up your lender who's going to be coming to the table with the capital that you need to purchase the property. You should be going back to the seller or the wholesaler and renegotiating your purchase price, because you make your money when you buy. You realize your profits when you sell, but you make your profits when you buy. That's why it's so important to be looking at all of these through the aspect of percentages. And then I hear this all the time as far as maximum allowable offer. People are like, you know what? My maximum allowable offer is 70% of the as is. Well, we want to shift that from the as is to the ARV. Your maximum allowable offer as a real estate investor should be between 47 and 50% of your ARV. We have seen this time and time and time again, that when you have those numbers, if you're accounting for a 22 to 25% of your ARV is construction cost, that within that range, that will keep you, taking all those costs together, that will keep you within a very, very healthy profit margin. Clearly, going on, the lower you can go as far as your offer on the project, then the better off you are. If your wholesaler comes to you and they are making a 50%, or let's say they are using that 70% as is as their MAO, well, you need to make sure you run your numbers to ensure that your percentages, you're looking at that from the ARV perspective, okay? So here are some valuable assets that you should have on your team. And these assets will help all of these numbers that we've talked about stay in line. You're really going to want to make sure that these assets are on your team. Number one, title agent. Title agent is going to help you maintain a clean title. A good title agent will be fast. They're going to be communicative, and they're also going to help coordinate all the other players, all the other assets that are on your team, help them work together smoothly. Here's your inspector. You should find somebody who's thorough. They are fast. They've got lots of reviews, and they've got years in the business. Because remember, your inspector is coming to your property to look at things that you may have missed. The inspector is there to help you realize what the true cost of your rehab is going to be. For those real estate investors that I don't need an inspector, if you are fairly new to the real estate investing space, you should absolutely be utilizing inspector, and this will help you stay on the right side of doing business. Here's the appraisal. Now, the appraisal, I put that in here because that is really the lender's key team member. But if you have an appraiser that you have a relationship, maybe your lender will utilize them. But honestly, at the end of the day, the lender is the one that chooses an appraiser. So please don't be the real estate investor that goes out and you spend $450, $500 or more dollars on an appraiser. And then you go to the lender and you say, I've already gotten my appraiser done. Here it is. More than likely, the lender will not use your appraiser. They're going to use their own appraiser, but you will still have to pay for that second appraisal. So just be aware that an appraiser could be a good team member to have, especially if you have a good relationship with a true private lender. That appraiser might be able to give you better deals, and they can work with you and your private lender. But if you're going to a hard money or a private lender that's got a business that they're running, more than likely, we always outsource that with a third party. Contractor. Here's some key points to keep in mind. Years in the business. They actually have capital. If your contractor is coming to you and saying, we can't start the project until you disperse us funds first, you might seriously want to go find a different contractor. Find a contractor that has the capital capabilities to start the work and then get paid in arrears. I cannot tell you how incredibly smooth working with those type of people are. Here's the thing. You as real estate investors like to beat up your contractors to get the best price possible. Don't do that. Find the contractor that meets these requirements. Guess what? They will probably be at the top end of your budget. But again, you know, because you're looking at percentages, you're not just looking at the profit as a dollar sign. You're looking at everything through percentages. You're going to be able to line up that contractor that's going to be able to help you stay on time and stay on budget. So that 10 to 15%, maybe 20% contingency, you never actually have to use. Okay. You want to find somebody that's communicative. They're going to be in touch with you and they're going to be thorough. And then the last person, but definitely not the least, is finding a real estate agent that understands the market. So they've got years in the business. They're big on communication. They've got the market experience. They know they've got plenty of other properties that they've listed for sale in the market that you're thinking of renovating. That is a key. I cannot tell you how many times we've had real estate investors that have a real estate agent that they're buddy with. They get a project done and they give their project to their real estate agent buddy, and that real estate agent does not understand that specific market, and that property sits on that market for an unbelievable long amount of time. And at the end of the day, it's not costing that real estate agent money. It's costing you, the real estate investor, money. So make sure that your real estate agent has specific experience for that market that your property is located in. And of course, that they're big on marketing. They understand the marketing space. They know how to get out there and find deals. At the end of the day, guys, pay the price to establish good relationships with your assets. Pay the price. Don't beat your assets up for better rates, constantly nickeling and diming them. If you will pay for the price to establish great relationships, they will yield you dividends that you cannot begin to understand right now. Those dividends are going to look like bottom line, higher dollar returns. They could be a quicker returns as far as getting the property and getting it completed specific to your real estate agent or your contractor. All of these take into account when you're building your assets. Make sure that you are not nickel and diming your assets. You want to make sure that you pay that price to establish that relationship, because when you have a good relationship with these assets, it will help your business grow and scale and take you to much better yielding deals and assets in the future. So pay that price, guys. All right, this has been Edwin Epperson. This has been a quick presentation on looking at real estate deals between percentages and dollars. I hope that this has been informative. If you have any questions, please reach out to us. You can follow us on Facebook. You can also reach out to me on LinkedIn. I've got a LinkedIn profile. I'm more than happy to discuss with you on LinkedIn as well. If you have other ideas or other investment scenarios or topics of conversation that you'd like me to visit, please reach out, let me know, and we will get that on the calendar as a presentation. And if you've got experience in that, let me know that as well. I'll be more than happy to have you on as a guest and we can talk about that together.